And we are live. And I see Caitlin's already joined me in the chat. Hi, Kate. Great to see you. Caitlin Stoddard, our own Caitlin Stoddard, I always say, because she's been, we've all been on the same shows for as long as I can remember. And Caitlin has. Hold on. Let me bring on my guest host here, Richie Eddings from the Jesus Movement. Actually, my younger brother. And we just went live, and I was introducing Kate Stoddard. And
All right.
Kate's got the her own podcast, Kate's Corner, and I think you usually have to type in Caitlin Stoddard on YouTube to get it, because there's another Kate's Corner also. So anyway, Caitlin Stoddard, we always appreciate you being here, and she's a lot of fun and just totally good people. Here's my younger brother, Richie Eddings. He's got his own live show called the Jesus Movement, and I noticed that he moved his Sunday show to tomorrow. I think it's 7 p.m. Is it, Rich?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. I was afraid I'd missed it. I was kind of concerned. As soon as Betty got home, you and I had been chatting. As soon as Betty got home, it was time to go out on the porch and work on the Christmas porch up until time to study for the show.
You want some shrimp cocktail?
No, not right now. No, thank you. Anyway, I was just offered a shrimp cocktail that I turned down foolishly. Anyway, okay, I want to say hi to some other people that have come into the chat. Mike Precode Fan tied for the winner on the AMA Awards contest we held, where we picked 4 categories. We listed the nominees of each categories, and people in the chat voted. A1, A3, A4, and they went down the list. And Mike tied for that. And so I had Mike tied for that with Rachel's Ghost, actually. And so last week I took my hat, I put both their names in it and mixed them up and pulled it out, and Rachel actually won. And
you having drawings now?
Well, once in a while, not often, but it was an awards show. I thought
Okay.
it was a way to kind of introduce myself and to others, to some of the newer bands that are out there. Because we kind of get stuck in our old music, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
I mean, it's nice to catch up on some of the newer stuff every once in a while. So anyway, Angela, hi Angela, good to see you. Thanks for showing up. Mike Precode Fan once again tied last week with Rachel, and then Rachel won the actual drawing. And let me just say hi to a couple of people. Richie.
No problem.
Yeah.
I got to go off screen. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for joining, guys. Tonight we're gonna have a fun show, and what we're going to be talking about is urban legends, and in particular as they apply to rock. And let's see. My co-host is still gone. We'll give this a minute.
We're already
I don't even know how much my brother knows about the topic tonight, but he does really well. My brother played in bands since we were kids, little kids. He's played in bands all over Las Vegas and other areas too. He toured and stuff like that. He's a great musician. We were showing off our guitars to one another today. So anyway, Rich, tonight's topic is going to be on urban legends as they apply to rock and roll. And we all know there's, the stories about what goes on tour and off tour even is just as wild as it could possibly be.
All I know is they're all true.
You've got all these narcotics, mountains of narcotics are taken on tour with these guys. And a lot of these rumors are totally exaggerated. Some of them are totally false. But what we're going to focus on tonight is the ones that are true and are known to be true and admittedly true by the subjects themselves. And here's our good buddy, Breakfast Kings of Loyola. Everybody go check out Breakfast Kings of Loyola. He's got a great show. Okay. Hi, Breakfast Kings. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining us. We're talking about urban legends tonight. Okay, so I'm going to start out with this one, Billy Joel. Legend has it that Billy Joel buys all the tickets in the front row seats. He's tired of the scalpers getting a hold of them, sell them for absorbent prices. And then he sits up there and he looks down at these guys that are, smoking cigars in the front rows. And he doesn't feel like the real fans ever get the good seats, just wealthy people. So he buys out the front row, at least the first row, sometimes the second. And what he does is he has his road crew take those front row tickets back to the very back of the concert and look for people that have the worst possible seats, and they give them those front row seats. Now, and nice. That is a true story. Huh?
That's nice.
He told Billboard magazine in 2014, he says, good morale is important to him and important to his crew. And so he now reserves all the front row seats and passes them out to people that can't afford the better seats. And I think that's fantastic because he says his seats are usually under $100, maybe they're $80. Maximum price for his seats would be $150. Now that's 2014. Okay, that's 9 years ago. Everything's changed a little bit since then, but it turns out the real fans are always in the back, like I mentioned before. And so he gets those people. He sees how happy those people to be in front. A total different reaction from, say, wealthy guys that have paid the scalpers twice what the tickets are worth and more. So I think that's fantastic. Angela says, okay, we got to get some comments up here. We've got some good stuff going on in the chat. A lot of it has to do with Ticketmaster, and I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I bought tickets to see the Rolling Stones a few years ago, their current tour, and it was right before COVID hit. Okay, we bought tickets. We bought plane tickets to fly there. We paid for hotel rooms, paid for everything in advance. And then because of COVID, the shows got canceled. And you talk about a nightmare trying to get your tickets back. It was unbelievable.
Here's the thing about Billy Joel.
Really rare. It is. Pardon me?
Here's the thing about Billy Joel here.
Yeah, he's got. Not everybody likes him. I've always liked Billy Joel. He's got the Piano Man. He's got some great songs out there. He's got some really great albums that they're, colored albums being sold at Walmart right now, and some really good stuff. And I've been tempted a couple of times when I go in there. Yeah, and I agree with Mike Precode fan. There are no seats, any seats. I don't pay. I think the last two concerts I went to, I know the last two concerts I went to were Alice Cooper in April, and then a couple of months ago, July, we went to see Journey here at the Paso Fairgrounds. And I don't think we paid $100 for either one of those tickets for seats there. $100. And, I kind of, 150 is probably the most I would ever pay. And anyway, so you get tired of these high prices. I like what Michael Nolan, the bottom line, says about these ticket prices, especially when he heard Paul McCartney was getting a couple of $1,000s a ticket. Bruce Springsteen, I think some of his top tickets jumped from $6,000 to $9,000 a seat.
I don't even see
and
that.
Michael Nolan referring to Paul McCartney. Well, instead of a get back tour, how about a give back tour? I mean, the guy's a billionaire.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to.
It's getting a little ridiculous. You can't make all your money on the concerts. You got it. That's not what it's all about. We talked about that before.
We have talked about that before. Well, not only that, Rich, a lot of people say, well, and they're not even out promoting a new album. They didn't even put out a new album they're promoting. Well, to tell you the truth, I prefer when they're not out promoting a new album, because it's like the Bob Dylan concert I went to. I was so excited. I was going to hear all my favorite Bob Dylan songs. And he was opening for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It was fantastic, And I get there and Bob Dylan walks out with a white Stratocaster. And I love Bob Dylan's songs, but I never heard a single one of those songs before because he was promoting his new album. Okay. A new album that I didn't buy. I like the old stuff.
Was that in the 80s?
Yeah, later 80s. Of course, then Tom Petty came out and the Heartbreakers, and they were absolutely amazing. I love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And then when they got through with their set, Bob Dylan came out and they all played together, and that was good too.
Yeah.
To see those two join up like that.
I told you that Joe Cocker tried to get away with that in Vegas.
Yeah,
He come out with a new album. He's rocking out and stuff, and everybody started hollering, "Little help from my friends," and "Feeling all right." All those songs.
Yeah,
He
I love this.
finally started getting down. He came in through the bathroom window, and everybody went crazy. You know.
I love what Mike's saying here.
He kept on going. He played for probably an hour of his old songs.
Great. Mike Pre-Code fans referring to Paul McCartney as Paul McGreedy. McGreedy. So true.
We didn't let him get away with it.
Excuse me.
It was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we can appreciate Billy Joel and appreciate the heart he has for his fans, you know. Okay, hey, Frank James just joined us. Awesome. I think you meant giving a refund for your tickets. I traveled to a city and found out when I arrived the show was canceled. I went to that city's outlet and they said I have to go back and get. Wow. No, Frank, absolutely. We called up for a refund and they said, oh no, it hasn't been canceled. It's only been postponed. So months and months were going by. I kept calling them. I kept asking them to give me a refund. I don't get to go to the concert. I want a refund. They kept saying, no. It's only been postponed, not canceled. The fine print in the contract, anybody reads it, says you only get a refund if the show's canceled. So finally one day I called them, give it another shot. They go, oh, you missed the deadline. We just had a deadline that passed, came and went. It was a 30-day window where you could have got a refund, but you missed it. And at that point, I don't think we ever got money back on our airline tickets. We did on the hotel room.
So
I finally had to unleash. Right? What's that?
They never told anybody about the deadline, right?
No. After all the times I called, hey, I don't need a deadline. Just mail my money back. You know, what the hell?
Yeah.
And
number one, you gotta put that out over the whole world for the deadline. You know?
Oh no, listen to what happened to Mike. Broke his leg and still has the unused tickets to the Tom Petty concert. That's a bummer. Sorry to hear that, buddy. Oh my God. Of all the luck, you know.
Well, I missed the what was it? You remember Fred, our sister Donna's first husband?
Yeah. Fred, I worked with him at Albertsons when I was like 18 years old.
Somehow I had tickets for a good band. I got a ticket, or Fred had an extra ticket or something, and he gave it to me, but I didn't know if I could go or not.
Oh, I see.
So our dad gave me a ride in your old Cadillac. Remember the 53 54 Cadillac?
My 56 Cadillac.
He got off to work.
Back seat like a king size bed. Go ahead.
But I didn't want to go in by myself. I was like 14 or something. I'd have to go in there and try to find him, you know?
Right.
We get all the way out there, and I chickened out, and I didn't go in, so I can't remember what the band was. I may think of it. It was a good band. It was a really good heavy duty.
Gotcha.
It might have been, it was Black Sabbath or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, that must have been the Black Sabbath concert I saw. Las Vegas Convention Center, right?
Yeah, I think it might have been Black Sabbath.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I went to with Fred, were you?
No, I went to that concert. I went with
several concerts. I went with another concert to Fred. We went and seen. You were at that one too. We went and seen Grassroots and Canned Heat.
But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I saw that one too. We talked about that.
Yeah, me and Fred. I went with Fred and one of his friends.
Wow,
I had to wait out in the car while they got high in his friend's apartment. You know, then they came out. We went.
Okay, well, the next urban legend I wanted to talk about, again, these are all true. Graham Nash of Crosby, Stills and Nash wrote Crosby, Stills and Nash's biggest song in something like 20 minutes. On a bet, he had an hour to go before he needed to be at the airport to catch a plane. And a buddy of his who was kind of a lightweight drug dealer, just pot, nothing real heavy, was with him, helping him kill time. And he said to him, they were in Maui, they were killing time. And the guy says to him, well, you're a big shot songwriter. I bet you can't write a song. Let's see, how much time did he give him? Let me be accurate about it. Oh, I bet you can't write a song in 2 minutes. He said that to Graham Nash. And he goes, well, how much do you want to bet? And the guy goes, I'll bet you $500. So they bet $500. Graham Nash scratched out a song in 2 minutes, never changed a word or a note. Crosby, Stills, Nash recorded it. And it was the biggest hit they had in their entire career. Now, I'm not talking about after, Neil Young and then James Taylor eventually added. This was the original Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And that song was Just a Song Before I Go. And later he was asked, they said, did you ever collect the $500? And he says, I still have the $500.
Oh, shoot. That's funny.
Wrote the biggest song they had in 2 minutes. That just blows my mind. Okay, there's Josh D. Hey, Josh, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Yeah, you guys, all do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button. The importance of that is understated. What it does when you get a lot of likes, that thumbs up button, it tells the algorithm that people like your show. And then when people start searching for content, they just go on YouTube and they're searching for stuff. Your shows and your show starts popping up. And that's what hitting that like button does for shows. It gets the word out. It helps us get subscribers. And I want to thank everybody that has subscribed. And I just want to encourage everybody right now, if you haven't subscribed to the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you're assured never to miss. You'll always be notified. It's your choice whether to watch them all or not. But if you hit the notification bell, you'll get a one-time notification that the show's going to be on. You're not going to be driven crazy over it. A one-time notification that the show's coming on soon. And then you have an opportunity to watch it if you'd like to. But please subscribe if you haven't. I notice when I go to my analytics that more than half the likes I get are from non-subscribers. So we're trying to get them all under the wing, and it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost you a thing. It just helps the show to grow and encourages us. So anyway, thanks a lot for that. We appreciate all of you. And so the next one I want to talk about. So that was Graham Nash, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. His 2-minute song became a big hit. So let's see here. We've got Picasso's Last Words, which was one of my favorite songs on VOTR. Oh, nice. Okay, the next we're going to move to is Aerosmith. Here's an urban legend about Aerosmith that I think most people may know is already true. Aerosmith was supposed to fly on the same plane that crashed and killed members of the band Lynyrd Skynyrd. And it was 1977, a Convair 240 outside of Galesburg, Mississippi. And after failing to make an emergency landing, 20 of the passengers survived. But among the dead were the 2 pilots, 3 members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, including Ronnie Van Zant, the lead singer. I mean, who can forget those vocals in Freebird and all those songs? Give Me 3 Steps. I love Lynyrd Skynyrd. They've just got some fantastic songs. And really, I like the first incarnation of them, where before these 3 members died. Just a great music. And so anyway, it was not only Ronnie Van Zant, but brothers Steve and Cassie Gaines, both were killed, and the band's assistant road manager, Dean Kilpatrick. I want to mention all the names. A few months earlier, Aerosmith had hired someone to inspect that very same plane. They were scheduled to fly on that plane prior to this. And the guy came back and, gave details why they refused to fly on the plane, saying only, fortunately, we had someone looking at the plane that we would be taking. And he put his foot down and said, guys, you're not flying on this airplane. And they didn't. So when they found out it was the same plane, they just said, no, thank you. And history offers only slightly more insight, reporting that the concerns over the flight crew led Aerosmith to look elsewhere. So that's a pretty interesting story as well. And so that was a real tragedy. What a great band. I mean, that was kind of my first Southern rock band that I really got into and enjoyed. And Rich, were you a fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Rich?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, of course. Who
Yeah.
wasn't really?
What's that?
Who wasn't really? I mean, they had a lot of good
Yeah.
songs. You know?
Oh, they had a lot of great songs. Yeah. So next, I'm going to move to kind of a fun story. Carly Simon wrote that song, "You're So Vain," and for decades, people were trying to find out who in the hell did Carly Simon write that song about. And you know what? I interrupt the show a lot just because some of my friends are joining us. Aerosmith was the loudest band I've seen. Ah, thank you, thanks, Dave, the Pickup Artist. And anyway, Dave, the Pickup Artist also has a show, and I encourage everybody to go visit Dave, the Pickup Artist, watch his show, and please subscribe to his show. He does a great job. Mary Jane is here. Hi, Mary. Thank you. Thanks for showing up and watching us. Okay, we're getting ready to talk about Carly Simon, Carly Simon, and the song "You're So Vain." And everybody forever was trying to figure out who she was singing about. And you know, speculation centered around there were several guys that sang backup vocals on that song "You're So Vain." And I didn't know this until I started studying, but I mean. You know, James Taylor, who was her ex, did some backup vocals. Chris Christopherson, Warren, no, Chris Christopherson, Mick Jagger. Let's see, you know, a bunch of people, and so there was all kinds of speculation that some of the guys that sang the backup vocals were who the song was about, but there was also speculation that it was David Bowie, Cat Stevens, or even David Geffen, the producer. So there's all these names, like about 10 names that people were always wondering who it was. Well, she swore she would never admit who that song was about until there was a fundraiser where she lived, and it was 2003. The singer agreed to let the secret slip as part of a charity benefit at Martha's Vineyard, where she lived. And so they had the auction, and the winner of the auction, of course, got to know who the name was. He was paying. He spent a lot of money to find out who that name was that everybody had wondered about for so many years. But there was one condition: he couldn't tell anybody else.
Oh my goodness!
So yeah, so this NBC sports president, Dick Ebersol, paid $50,000 for a name he couldn't share with anybody.
Oh dear.
But again, it was a charity event, and later on, she did reveal the name, and it was, oh God, of all people, Warren Beatty. You know, Warren Beatty. Rich, were you with us when we went to see Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Beatty with Dad at the drive-in theater?
That was a good one.
That was the first time I'd ever seen Warren Beatty in a movie. It was a long time ago.
Me too, yeah. First time for me too.
I was probably 15, so you were what, 12 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so it was Warren Beatty, but there's a caveat here. It was Warren Beatty she was singing about in the second verse, and she still never revealed who she sang about in the first verse and the third verse. Talk about complicated.
That's you carried it a little too far, I think.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
I mean,
come on.
That's how I felt. It's going a little too far. Yeah.
Ridiculous, you know.
I just want to ask the people in the chat if anybody has a story they want to tell about a rock urban legend. I don't guess rock or country, just a music urban legend. Just say so, and we'll bring you right on the show. I'll put up a link that you can click on, come right on the show, and tell your story. Anybody is welcome to come on and tell an urban legend story tonight. And here's Bill K, our good friend Bill K. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man. Rich, do you have any urban legend stories off the top of your head, or you probably didn't even know what the show was going to be about?
No, I looked it up.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Stories, yeah. But I'm thinking. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, but I'm thinking now. And I got my notebook sitting here, so I may be able to look one up if I'm lucky and fast.
Okay, so Mike Precode fan says, look up my previous comment about Kiss. Okay, let's just go see if we can find that. Partially about Jagger, partially about Warren Beatty. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to see them all. You know, we get talking and interacting and stuff like that. Here's an urban legend. Okay, let's look at this. I wish were false. Members of Kiss had a comic book made using their blood for ink. One of the many reasons I don't like Kiss. You know, Mike, I have heard that story. I've absolutely heard that story. If you have more details on it and you want to pop in and tell us about it, you're more than welcome. But I've heard that, and I also heard it was true. Okay, we have another guest. We have Eddie's Physical Media Talk. I love going to Eddie's show, to be honest with you guys. Eddie has a great show, and he plays fantastic music, and it's always stuff that I typically haven't heard before. Some of it I have, but most of it I haven't heard before. And so what the really cool thing about going to Eddie's show, everything I've ever heard there I've really enjoyed and liked. So it opens your eyes to all kinds of new stuff that you maybe haven't been listening to, and that I really like. So hi, Eddie, and it's good to see you here, buddy. Richie, are you drinking a beer? If you are, I'm jealous.
No, it's a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't mind a 40 once in a while.
Yeah, right?
Have to be ice cold, though.
See, here's Angela once again confirming the whole Kiss, using their own blood on this comic book. It is true. There are pictures of Kiss with the blood vials. I mean, that's wild.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have any sense in those days. I don't know.
Eddie, you're quite welcome. Looks like I missed somebody here. Brown Dog's in the house. Brown Dog in the house, meeting Hubert Sumlin in Poughkeepsie and Albert Collins, all open people. The best are always open. Oh, I agree 100%. Thanks for coming, Brown Dog. Really appreciate it. Good to see you, buddy. So anyway, I think next one we're going to talk about, and this is really sad, and I can understand how he'd feel, but this was Waylon Jennings. He was playing for the backup band for Buddy Holly,
right?
Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and Waylon Jennings they were all gonna. There was only so much room on an airplane, so Waylon Jennings had to take. Well, he had to take it. He won the draw to fly on the plane. Okay, but he gave up his seat to the Big Bopper, and they refer to this whole plane crash as the day the music died. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, who was a big star at the time, and the Big Bopper, Chantilly Lace and a pretty thing. I don't know if you guys heard that, but anyway, they all died. They were all on tour together. They all died. And the crazy part about it is, Waylon really respected Buddy Holly and once said the 50s idol believed in him when he had as much star quality as an old shoe. He just knew Buddy Holly was going to make it, and he was just that good. Jennings was a member of Holly's band, the Crickets, and on that fateful day, the music died. Okay, this was February 1959. It was a flight from Mason City, Iowa to Fargo, North Dakota. He gave up his seat to J.P. Richards, a.k.a. the Big Bopper. Jennings took the bus with the rest of Holly's band to Fargo, something he and Holly joked about before the plane departed, as Jennings recalled later. Holly said to Jennings, he goes, so you're not going with us tonight on the plane, huh? Well, I hope your bus freezes up. It's 40 below out there, and you're going to get awful cold, So he was giving Jennings, ribbon Jennings too. So Holly, Jennings came back and said, well, I hope your plane crashes. And those words have haunted him for the rest of his life.
I'll bet they did.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Hope your plane crashes.
Yeah. Probably the wrong thing to say.
Yeah. I'll never use that.
especially when you're getting ready to get on a plane. It's your buddies are taking off.
Hey,
Man,
just
it
the
was
facts.
a rainy
Hey,
night too, wasn't it?
hey, Dan, I'll put up a link right now, buddy. Good to see you could hop in. I mean, I don't know if you have time for the whole show or what, but I'm putting a link up. I've been, and there it is. The link's up, Dan. Jump aboard, buddy. Let's see. Okay.
He
Keith
wrote
Richards kicked heroin.
Did you see his comment on there?
Wait, what's that?
He says comment on there that Keith Richards kicked heroin by getting a blood transfusion.
No, I don't think that's what it said. Eric Clapton gave up his seat in the helicopter that later crashed and killed Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, that's one you don't hear about that much, Dan. No, let's see what that other one was again. Keith Richards said he and Ron Wood once pissed in Roy Buchanan's beer. Oh my God, I'm hoping that one's not true. You know.
I wonder if they
We got
Buchanan
some
knew about
trolls here. 69 XXX life. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. Block that user.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I think he whoever popped in last week too, and I need to figure out how to give everybody that I know a wrench, and anybody can kick people off the show. Okay. Okay, what is Caitlin saying here? I'm in bed too, Dan. Okay, so Dan must not be feeling good for Caitlin to be saying that. Gave up his seat in the helicopter and landed. Frank J. Royce in the house. Okay. All right, Dan. It's all good, buddy. It's all good. Anyway, I wanted to thank you. Dan posted some videos last night. And it was one of those rare nights I went to bed with my phone. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd see if there's anything going on. And Dan posted some great videos of a Pantera concert in Mexico. And as we all know, Dimebag Darrell was murdered while he was playing by somebody that was a deranged fan. And then later his brother, the drummer in the band, Vinnie Paul, also died. And Dan was really close with those guys. You know, he was almost like a fifth member of the band, hung out with them and stuff. And after Dimebag Darrell died, for those that don't know, just the facts, man, Dan McNew organized the Ride for Dime. It was a Harley Davidson ride, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and started occurring in other states as well. And there would be all kinds of musicians would show up to play there that had nothing but respect for, you know, Dimebag and his brother Vinny's musicianship. Wow. And so Dan was a big part of all that. So it's anything that happens with Pantera or these guys is just really huge to him. And I totally respect that and totally get it. So he's probably up all night, copying these videos from Mexico of Pantera playing. Anyway, let's see, what have we got here? Mike Precode fan. Yes, Roy Buchanan and Hey Joe is wild. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Take a look at some of these comments. Come on, Royce, wrench me up. You know, Bill, somebody said that to me the other day, and I've never. If you'll see in the chat, nobody has a wrench. I meant to ask somebody, how do I give anybody a wrench? And of course, you'll get one, Bill. Jesus, your family here. Absolutely. As soon as I figure out how to give people a wrench, I'll give people wrenches. You go to the three dots after clicking on their name to make someone a moderator. Oh, okay. So it's just like making someone a moderator. Okay. I'll start doing that. You know, Bill, when I hit the three dots after your name, I can either put you in timeout or block you. I don't have any choice. There's no wrench you up here, buddy. So there's something missing here, as I can see. Okay, so there's something I have to turn on to be able to do that. You go to the three dots after clicking on their name to make someone a moderator. Okay. All right. So we'll work on that, and I will definitely rent you out, no doubt. It brings people together in contrast with today's political. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, the politics. I read where Donald Trump last night wanted to suspend the Constitution because three other judges overrode something that a judge that made a favorable ruling had laid out. Anyway, whatever. I avoid politics like the plague anymore these days. It's just so divisive. You used to be able to argue with your friends, debate your friends, laugh with your friends, whether you agreed with them or not over politics. It's just not that way right now. Everything's changed, and I don't like it. And I'll be glad when things finally get back to normal. Okay, Frank, I want my wrench to be a high high impact one. Absolutely, buddy. We'll get you one. We'll get you one. Let's see. Okay. Something about Hendrix always catches my eye. Hendrix' death theory. He was killed by his manager because Jimmy was going to fire him. Manager had connections to the mobs. Well, that's really interesting. And the reason that's interesting to me, aside from being one of the biggest fans Jimi Hendrix ever had, the reason I find that interesting is because I had a guitar teacher, great guitar player. You know, he played all over the place, and had, you know, like most guitar players, had some CDs out and stuff like that. Super talented. He sounded like Robert Plant when he sang. Great voice, great talent. And he had all kinds of theories, not only on Jimi Hendrix, but on Jim Morrison of the Doors. And these were all kind of leaders of the counterculture. And he always felt like those guys and a couple of others were actually murdered by our government. No, I didn't really sign on to that, but it was interesting hearing that. And given the times that we were in, it could be believable. I mean, like the Jerry Rubins, we had all these counterculture leaders that were protesting against the government. And like I've said many times before, we didn't look at the government as Republicans and Democrats. It was the establishment and us. We hated them. They hated us back. Just the way it was. We were just a bunch of long-haired, leaping gnomes trying to figure it all out. And those guys all smoked weed. All the leaders of the counterculture were well-known potheads. And so Richard Nixon put pot in the same classification with heroin as far as the penalties for getting caught with it. And the goal there was to be able to catch all these counterculture guys with weed and lock them all up in prison. And to this day, it's still classified the same as heroin, although many states have legalized it, including the state where I live, California. And anyway, enough of that nonsense. Kate wants a wrench. I'm sure everybody wants, everybody's going to get one too. Okay.
There's something about Rod Stewart. It's not really, really heavy duty or nothing, but
okay. Well, go ahead.
After being drawn to folk and R&B as a young musical artist, Rod Stewart was eventually discovered while playing harmonica on a London train platform by John Baldry.
Okay.
He was discovered by John Baldry. I guess John Baldry was a musician too. This led to a gig with Hoochie Coochie Men and his eventual signing to the Decca Records label.
Oh, wow.
He was discovered playing harmonica on a train platform.
You got to be kidding me.
Well,
I
heard it a different way, but
I want to say hi to Daddy Boggs. Daddy Boggs, your family. As soon as I get my case of wrenches, you get one right away, buddy. Your family here. Don't ever think anything less than that. Okay, so let's see. Let's get a couple of other comments up. The autopsy did not make sense. Yeah, Thug supposedly forced wine and pills down Jimmy's throat. Yeah, I mean, it's all possible, Frank. I mean, it's all possible. I know there was a woman he was dating at the time, and I just read a story within the past week. The woman he was dating at the time, and the reason I read this story is it's a few days ago would have been Jimi Hendrix's 80th birthday, And so I was reading different things on him, and his girlfriend at the time was actually in the place, in the apartment they were staying in, and she found him, and he was still breathing, and she called an ambulance and tried to revive him, and basically it was classified as he was, barbiturates, and it got asphyxiated. But he took barbiturates, sleeping pills, really popular back in the day, and he took barbiturates and had been drinking, and they classified the coroner said he died, choked to death on his own vomit, and anyway, who knows if someone didn't stuff a lot of those pills down his throat. I mean, you can see how that would happen. So anyway, let's see. So that was my story about Waylon Jennings, and how amazing is this? The next story I had was about Jimi Hendrix. Before Jimi Hendrix was known as a rock god, king of psychedelic rock, and just amazing, playing behind his head, playing with his teeth. I mean, I think he's the greatest guitar player of all time. And I mean, and I get that, the Eddie Van Halens and some of the others, lightning speed and all that two-hand tapping and stuff, very, very impressive. But I still think Jimi Hendrix is the greatest guitar player of all time. And I'll go to my grave thinking that. Nothing could ever change my mind on that. I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. And if people don't, sometimes you hear someone say, "Oh, Jimi Hendrix was easy. I can play some of his stuff." Well, they was so full of nuances. They don't even scratch the surface of playing it the way Hendrix played it. Okay, but what I want to talk about right now is Hendrix getting fired. Before he was a huge star, before he went over to England, put some songs out, was put together with Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding, power trio, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Before all that happened, he was playing with the soul artists. He played with Little Richard. He played with the Isley Brothers. In fact, he lived with one of the Isley Brothers for 4 or 5 years and taught the son, Ernie Isley, how to play guitar. And I saw Ernie Isley in concert, and Ernie Isley told that story and proceeded to play it. And it was a tribute to Hendrix. It was the whole concert with all these fantastic guitar players taking turns. And when Ernie Isley started playing, man, you thought you were listening to Jimi Hendrix. And that was fantastic. But he played with Ike of Ike and Tina Turner fame. I mean, he played with Junior Walker and the All-Stars. In fact, I want everybody, to go to YouTube and type in Jimi Hendrix and Junior Walker and the All-Stars with Jimi Hendrix, and watch that video. It's one of my funnest videos to watch. I fall out of my chair every time I watch it. You got Junior Walker. You got the two stars, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, are up there dancing, and the dancing is freaking hilarious. They're pumping the shotguns and shooting and doing all this wild dancing, and I just go crazy watching that. And in the background is the horn section, the guitar player. The guitar player happens to be Jimi Hendrix. They're all dressed in suits, and they're all rocking back and forth while they're playing. And Jimmy had to maintain his role. But you'd watch him, and he'd switch his hand over the top and play, and then come back and then do the, because he was just going crazy, just maintaining that role of rocking back and forth with the horn section. But anyway, so Jimmy played with all of these bands, and these soul bands, Little Richard, Ike Turner, all of them. And another funny video, when you get done watching Jimi Hendrix behind Junior Walker and the All-Stars, type in Jimi Hendrix getting fired by Ike Turner. He got fired by a lot of these guys. And they're interviewing Ike Turner. They ask Ike Turner, "You fired Jimi Hendrix? Why did you fire Jimi Hendrix?" He goes, "Well, he had all those pedals. He had this pedal, the wah pedal, the fuzz, the that. And he spent more time messing with those pedals than he spent playing. I just didn't like that, so I fired him." And the guy goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that." He goes, "Well, when I started hearing about this Jimi Hendrix rock god, I didn't know the same Jimi Hendrix."
I think I looked that one up too.
That's what Ike Turner said. But in the mid-'60s, Jimmy transitioned from playing in the Isley Brothers to playing for various soul and R&B, and even B.B. King. He played for B.B. King, Jackie Wilson, Sam Cooke. It's so many people.
Man, he
Yeah,
got around.
people forget about that. People didn't know he was playing with all those guys, and he was fired by Little Richard's band. So he was playing for Little Richard, and obviously had talent, but he had a bad habit of being late and upstaging the main act. Little Richard would hear all this cheering and screaming. He'd look over, and they were all screaming and cheering about Jimi Hendrix, not Little Richard.
Oh, wow.
So his brother finally got permission, because Jimmy was always late, missing the buses and stuff like that, to fire him. So Little Richard fired him. And I know that Jimi Hendrix said he liked playing for Little Richard, because unlike being in, say, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, where he rocked back and forth in a suit, Little Richard would let him improvise and get a little crazy. And that's why people were screaming, watching Jimmy play,
Right.
And so I guess they just got, at least they said that was the reason, And so that was Jimi Hendrix, timely, because we were talking about Jimi Hendrix. So if anybody's got a story they want to tell, we're going to welcome them on. In the meantime, I've got more.
But I have a question for you. Is El Cerrito, California, close to you?
No, it's closer to Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to say, when you say close, I mean, I can be in Mexico in 5.5 hours. That's passing through LA, but maybe 6 hours. But El Cerritos, I'm going to say no more than 4 hours.
Because that was Creedence's hometown.
Really? Now I heard it was
San Francisco?
No, not San Francisco, but up in Northern California.
No.
Bill K., where are you at? What was Creedence Clearwater's hometown?
They were formed in El Cerrito, California.
Okay, they were formed there. Okay. But I think that's interesting.
They did sign up at a record company in San Francisco. It was a private jazz label. Now they went on from there, but Sir Creed's hometown lineup. All right.
Man, I'm getting jealous, Mike.
Here. What is the meaning of Creedence? Creedence, the meaning of Creedence came after it was named after a man named Creedence Newball.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Isn't that funny? It was somebody's name.
That is funny, yeah.
Creedence Newball. That's hilarious. It doesn't say what about Clearwater, but
yeah. So anyway, so it was Little Richard's brother Pennyman finally got permission to fire him. Said he was a damn good guitar player, but the guy was never on time. He was always late for the bus and flirting with the girls and stuff like that. It came to a head in New York where we had been playing the Apollo, and Hendrix missed the bus for Washington, D.C. I finally got Richard to cut him loose.
Well, you can't be missing the bus to the gigs,
No, you can't. I mean, you can't blame him, really.
Well,
here's another urban legend. Now, I'm a big fan of Van Morrison, Brown Eyed Girl, and so many great songs.
Yeah.
In fact, we actually said to one of our granddaughters, that's your song. That's our song for you, Brown Eyed Girl, Alexis. And we like Van Morrison. He's great. A lot of good music. I think I have maybe 5 of his albums, and I hope they're not any of these that I'm going to mention now. The caption of this is Van Morrison recorded 31 useless songs to fulfill a record contract. That's a lot of songs. In '67, Van Morrison started his solo career with a bang. Records and legendary producer Burt Burns. It was with Bang that Morrison recorded the hit single Brown Eyed Girl that I just talked about. And the song appeared on his debut album, Blowin' Your Mind. The problem was Burns never told Morrison he was making the album. And so, in a move as petulant as it was bold, Morrison cranked out 31 deliberately terrible songs for Bang. Listening to them now, and you should, they seem to have been made up and recorded all on the spot. With an obviously bored Morrison strumming an incredibly out of tune guitar. I mean, I've never heard this story before. The session had been dubbed Morrison's Contractual Obligation Album, and sometimes paying dues. Despite Morrison's audacity, this recording session was not enough to release him from his contract. Warner Brothers executive Joe Smith claims he had to bring a sack full of $20,000 in cash to a group of gangsters in a Manhattan warehouse to end the debacle. Now, I have never heard that story. El Cerritos, California, lower middle-class suburb in San Francisco, East Bay. 8th grader John Fogerty, Stu Cook, Doug Clifford, like so many other rock-crazed kids, made a band. Okay, so it was up north. It was up north. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking Cerritos, which is down near Los Angeles. Thanks, Bill. I knew you would have the answer.
Okay, here we go. In lower middle class suburbs.
Were in 8th grade. Richie, I remember you had a band in 8th grade, and you guys all played outside in our front yard. You set the band up every night.
We had concerts on the patio and sometimes out front.
You know, the funny thing about it, you played a lot of Creedence Clearwater songs at the time.
That's right.
And you credited my old 8 tracks with that.
You had an album too, Bayou Country.
Bayou Country. That's the first 8 track. That and Disraeli Gears by the Cream were the first 2 8 tracks I ever bought.
It had Susie Q on it.
My first car
was 15-minute version of Susie Q on it.
Oh yeah.
The big old long, the space on the album was about that wide. For that song.
It's like listening to Inagata Devita. You know, it's like
right. I love that. I listened to that.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. Okay, did you guys know that Michael Jackson was involved with? Well, it's actually I think a video game, Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
I'll be darned.
And I've got to read this one because, okay, so this is a tale that involves so many twists and turns regarding both the controversial figure of Michael Jackson and the complicated world of game design and scoring. That it's easy to be lost down this digital rabbit hole. For a truly deep dive, that's why I couldn't memorize any of this one. I looked at it earlier. A deep dive into this decade-spanning story, journalist Tom Van Luling wrote an excellent breakdown on how Sonic the Hedgehog fans have been investigating this mystery since the game's release. Here's the gist of it. For many years, a sizable number of Sonic fans have been convinced that Jackson wrote music for the franchise's 3rd installment, which was released in 1994. This theory primarily involves 3 tracks on Sonic 3, the Ice Cap Zone theme, the end credits music, and the Carnival Night Zone that bear similar arrangements to some of the artist's later music. It is known that Jackson had a good relationship with Sega after they collaborated on the 1990 Moonwalker video game that he was a fan of, and that the artist visited the Sega Technical Institute in Palo Alto, California. In 1993, however, Sega denies that Jackson was involved with the soundtracks for Sonic 3, and yet, of the game's 6 credited songwriters, 3 of them say they worked with Jackson on the video game. One of the songwriters, Brad Buxer, was Jackson's keyboardist and the musical director for his tours. Years after the game was released, Buxer told Huffington Post he wasn't sure if Sega actually used any of Jackson's material in the final game, but he notes, "We did use a lot of samples made from Jackson's beatboxing. Jackson couldn't write music. He would beatbox the instrumentals for his collaborators. He would chop this up and use it in cues. Of course, there were Michael hee-hees and other signature Michaelisms, hee-hee," according to Buxer. So he was tied into, video games, arcade games and stuff too. That kind of that kind of caught me by surprise. Not a fan of Wacko Jacko. Yeah, yeah, he was a trip, all right. He was a trip.
He'd lose a few fans over the controversy.
Yeah, there was controversies, Yeah,
He had
he
like
had,
so. I
yeah,
heard he had like a
very
amusement park.
talented. When we drive down to Santa Barbara, which is an hour and 45 minutes from here, we go through the valley that Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is in. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
that's what I was
it's one of the
talking about.
roads we pass going through Santa Ynez. And I've always told Betty I want to sooner or later, go up there and see the Neverland house, just to see it, just to see it. And I can't say I was a fan. Well, let me tell you about me and Michael Jackson. Okay, when Michael Jackson started singing with the Jackson Five, his brothers, I was listening to Led Zeppelin. Okay, I was
That's
listening to Led
different.
Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, the Cream Disraeli Gears, and I got. I don't know what the situation was one night. I had Harley Davidson and a couple of cars, but I was walking uptown on a cold night. And I don't know if you remember these guys. It was Eloy Gonzalez used to live on the end of our street, and I think his brother. They picked me up and were giving me a ride, and all of a sudden Michael Jackson's song came on, or the Jackson Five, excuse me, ABC. It's easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC. And I'm sitting in the back seat. One of them looked at the other and said, "It's about time Michael Jackson came out with a good song." Or the Jackson
Oh
Five.
my gosh, that was not. That was. Well, it
Well,
was.
if it wasn't so cold outside, I'd ask to get out.
I'd like to say.
I mean,
stuff.
for us, for most of us, that was not a popular band.
That I like to tie into dance stuff.
Bop. It was teeny bop, and we were listening to some heavy stuff.
Until disco stuff came out, and you had all that heavy duty dance stuff.
Yeah, well, you know what? I gained a lot of respect for Michael Jackson later's music when he came out with Thriller and albums like that. I mean, that Thriller just this past week had its 40th anniversary of coming out.
Wow.
Best-selling album. I know. Best-selling album of all time. And, the Eagles' greatest hits had edged out Thriller, but then Michael Jackson died. And once he died, people, flocked to the record stores. And it was close anyway. And who knows that Michael Jackson, they actually traded the top spot a few times. And then Michael Jackson died. And, of course, he shot up. So anyway, so who knows whether or not you can credit with his, passing for that boom in sales. A lot of people say that's the case. Probably is. But I did gain a lot of respect for his music. I mean, that was that era when I was watching a lot of MTV. It was on a lot in my house, and the kids were all enjoying it. And all those songs from Thriller. I mean, they were to watch the videos of those. It was actually fun to watch them.
I don't know how he recreated a lot of that stuff live, when later on.
Right. And Bill K is right. I used to moonwalk, practice moonwalk. Well, I never could get the forward moonwalking down, but I was getting pretty good at the back moonwalking.
I almost had it down once, not like Michael Jackson, but I could kind of
No, not like Michael Jackson. No,
you resembled it a little bit.
You got to throw some high pitched squeals out, and slap your knee and throw your hat, and
I didn't get it right down like that. I was lucky to get a few steps in, a few strolls in.
Bill K, Bill, you're a wealth of knowledge. 5 years after Michael Jackson's infamous Netherlands ranch was listed for $100 million, it has been bought by businessman Roy Burke for $22 million. That's a little more realistic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. We really appreciate it. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat here. I showed them the
Speaking of houses that Stars owned, our mother used to work for this lady doing home care.
Okay.
And her husband was a wealthy, As a matter of fact, I think he was a builder, a land developer and stuff.
Okay.
But this lady and her husband, before they moved to Henderson into this little house after they got really old, they lived in Lawrence Welk's house in Boulder City.
No kidding.
Yeah. And the house still is sitting there, Lawrence Welk's house.
Well, we grew up
Thank you.
8 or 9 miles from Las Vegas, and everybody worked in Vegas. Both our parents did, and we did too. And there's so many stories, because there's so many entertainers out there, all the time. The Rat Pack, and Elvis was there, and they were all out
A lot of
there.
them started moving there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wayne Newton had that big ranch there, Shenandoah Ranch.
Yeah, Billie Jean was one of his better songs. Our nephew Adrian was really into, when Adrian showed up to work for me for the summer, he was 14 years old, and he brought, Rush and Van Halen and all kinds of heavier music. He'd walk out in the front room, and Michael Jackson's Thriller would be on, and he would just lose his mind.
Oh no.
Trying to get me to listen to what he was listening to at the time. Anyway,
I don't know how he's doing these days. I know his mom died in the recent.
No, I didn't hear that.
Recently. Yeah,
he just sent me a friend request about 2 weeks ago that I accepted.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Well, he's trying to. He did a new thing on Facebook, and I haven't got involved into it with him yet. But it sounded like he was almost out on the street there for a while, but maybe he wasn't. I don't know, but it sounded like it. But,
okay. Well, yeah. He's had some problems. Okay. The lead singer for Depeche Mode, Dave Gahan, before going on stage with the Depeche Mode, he would take naps in a coffin. Once again, true. During their devotional tour, lead singer David Gahan was going through a vampire phase. As a joke, a coffin was delivered to him while he was touring in South America, and he'd allegedly take naps in it before the shows. But the vampire stuff didn't really end there. British journalist Andrew Perry claimed that Gahan put a curse on him by biting him on the neck.
Oh, wow.
An incident Gahan can't recall, but perfectly accepts might be true. He certainly had an unusual bed at the time, telling Uncut in 2001. He had this huge bed made, in the shape of a coffin. huge double bed shaped like a coffin. My whole life was Spinal Tap at that time. Okay, so another crazy story. Another crazy true story.
I don't understand these guys, why they do stuff like that. I just can't. What is that? What are they hoping that's going to do for them?
Well, the old saying about like musicians and stuff, and other people and other types of shows too, is like any publicity is good publicity.
Well, I think it's
anything
just
that draws attention to them.
They're popular and famous, a lot of them. That's the only reason it gets any attention. I mean, if it was me, you wouldn't even hear about it, right?
Right.
So what if I sleep? So what if I take naps in a coffin? Right? Nobody would care.
Right. Depressed mode, not Depeche Mode. Depressed mode. I love it. Okay, so that's Dave Gahan, Depeche Mode. Okay, did the Beach Boys really buy a song from Charles Manson? What do you think, Rich?
I don't think so. It could be true, but I doubt it very seriously. I don't think he was much of a songwriter, was he?
No, he too bad he did. Too bad he didn't get into a band though. The Beach Boys.
Oh my gosh,
the Beach Boys bought a song. They bought a song from Charles Manson.
Okay,
in the summer of '68, Dennis Wilson befriended a charismatic ex-convict named Charles Manson. Manson had yet to earn his, notorious reputation as the man who killed in the 60s. At the time, he was simply an aspiring musician with a number of young followers known as the Family in tow. The Family, everyone hung out at Wilson's home. Everyone hung out at Brian Wilson's home.
I'll be darned.
And we're dropping LSD with him. Okay.
So they were all Californians, right?
Yeah, Wilson actually got Manson recording time in his brother's studio. It did not go well, and even though and even bought the rights to one of his songs, "Cease to Exist." Apparently, Manson sold the song for a one-off cash payment and a motorcycle, and Manson didn't approve of Wilson changing some of the lyrics and sent him a single bullet as a warning.
Are you
Do
kidding? Well,
not,
sounds like Manson.
no, that's what it's
Yeah.
all right here.
It
The
sounds
Beach
like
Boys
Manson,
changed.
that's for sure.
The Beach Boys changed the name of Manson's song to "Never Learn Not to Love," and Manson was not given the songwriting credit. In 1976, when asked about his relationship with Manson and his family, Wilson told the Rolling Stone, "As long as I live, I'll never talk about that."
Oh gosh, I don't blame him, right? I probably
No,
would have given him
Daddy
credit.
Boggs here knows more about the Beach Boys than anybody I know. Let's see what Daddy Boggs is saying. It was cease to resist. They changed the name. Oh, cease to resist. They changed the name to "Never Learn to Love." Thanks, Boggs. How you doing, buddy?
It was "Cease to Resist." Oh my gosh.
I thought there's something funny up here. My youngest son went through that vampire phase when he was 2. He bit everyone all the time.
That must have
That's
been
great.
pretty funny, man. A 2-year-old biting everybody.
Dan knew that they bought a song from Charles Manson.
Of course, Dan knew. He's just the facts, man. Of course, Dan knew. I mean,
Rock's urban legend. Was it David Bowie or Rod Stewart? I don't know. I'm not sure what we're talking about. Maybe obviously we're going to miss stuff in the chat. It goes through pretty quickly. So anyway, I just have I have one more story. One more story. Okay. Let me see. No, I have 2 more stories.
oh
Okay.
no, not 2. Okay, go ahead.
Did Ozzy Osbourne bite the head off live doves? And yes, he did. Also a bat. And Ozzy Osbourne was going down to meet a couple of record executives, and Sharon goes, "You got to do something to impress them. You got to do something that'll impress these guys." So she gave him 2 white doves, and she said, "Take these white doves down and give them to these guys as a gift. That'll really leave an impression with them." Well, Ozzy gets down there, pulls one of the white doves out, and bites its head off in front of him. Bites its head off the dove, a freaking peaceful dove,
He made an impression.
He was attending a meeting with record executives. Boredom got the best of him. It talks about Sharon giving him the white doves, telling him to make a impression. Anyway, Arden was hoping she could convince him, hoping she could convince the execs to help promote Osbourne's first solo album, and had brought along not 2 but 3 white doves as a symbolic peace gesture to make nice with Epic Records and its parent company CBS. Unfortunately, Osbourne had been consumed. No, some of this is not typed right. Osbourne had consumed a whole bottle of brandy on the way over and decided it would be more fun to shake things up, the Prince of Darkness told his biographer.
I heard it different than that. I heard that he didn't bite the head off a dove until they flew around the room and shit all over everybody.
Well, I don't know. He said he pulled out one of the doves.
I just made that up.
Bit its effing head off just to shut her up. Then did it again with the next dove, spitting the head out on the table, and the woman fell on the floor screaming. That's when they threw me out. They said I'd never work for CBS again.
I just saw that on a special I watched on him. That story you told.
Now I understand the story about the bat is different. People were throwing stuff on stage, and he saw this bat land near him, and he thought it was just a fake rubber bat. And without investigating any further, he ripped the head off with his teeth.
Can you imagine what that bat
realized,
tasted like?
huh?
Can you imagine what that filthy bat tasted like?
Oh my God! The bat was more of an accident, like I was saying.
I can't even imagine, though. I can't imagine that. I have no idea what a bat would taste like.
He picked it up, put it in his mouth, and chomped it down. That's disgusting. The last story I have, we'll get through this. It's a short one.
Yeah.
Okay, was John Lennon investigated by the FBI? What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
Because he was involved in all
yeah,
the war protests and stuff. He probably was.
yeah, no, no,
Kind of like
and all these.
nowadays where they're using
Well,
the
it's
FBI
like
to
I said at the
investigate
start of the
everybody.
show. All these stories are true on this one. I
Yeah.
have a bunch of other stories that are completely different, where I ask everybody to say yes or no, true or false, and then there's also a whole bunch of people that had already voted, in this article, and then you can say, okay, well, 500 people that voted said yes, and 60 said no. So anyway, I don't have any of those to do tonight. That's a whole nother show. There was way more of those than there are of these. So John Lennon was investigated by the FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation began investigating John Lennon after he visited New York in 1971 to meet up with anti-war activists. Just like you said, anti-war activists. According to NPR, the Immigration and Naturalization Service attempted to deport him the very next year. Uh, John Lennon was under a 60-day order to leave the country almost continuously. His visa ran out for 2 years. Thanks to his lawyers, he was never actually booted from the country. And once President Nixon was out of office, he finally got a green card. So John Lennon got a green card, baby.
It's kind of hard to get rid of British people or the United Kingdom people out of the country because they're such big allies of ours. We don't like to kick them out too much.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's
it's kind
right.
of not a good thing to get involved in.
Right, right. Well, that's basically all I had for urban legends that are true. Anybody else have any comments they want to throw out? Let's see. Mike said Elvis Presley tried to get Nixon to make him a DEA member.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Oh my God! So he could go get Lennon out of the U.S. Apparently.
Yeah, Presley, that's in that movie. Nixon.
Presley wanted all the
Elvis
drugs for himself.
Hey, they made a movie called Elvis and Nixon, and it talks about that. It shows that. I mean, they.
No kidding.
They act the whole thing out. He gets a badge and everything. No, he gets a badge and everything, the DEA and stuff.
Yeah, Angela's correct. Ozzy had to get shots after biting a bat's head off in case it was random.
He already had rabies.
Yeah.
He already had it. He didn't have to worry about it. He had herd immunity.
Bill Case says in 1971, the FBI put John Lennon under surveillance because of his anti-war activities. That's exactly right.
He had 4 pieces like I did.
Frank says Lennon was influential over the youth. Nixon feared he would lose if Lennon spoke out against Nixon. That's a really good point right there, too. It was these people that were influential with the youth. Yeah. That's a really good point.
The family was talking.
Thank you. It's okay. Thank you, Daddy Boggs. Christine McVie, Fleetwood Mac, one of the founding members, prolific songwriter, wrote some of their greatest hits, just died 3 or 4 days ago. Very sad. She just has a relatively new album out with one of the other members of Fleetwood Mac. It's supposed to be really good.
She was good.
Yes, rest in peace, Christine.
Musician and singer.
Okay,
I got on the elevator. I got one little thing. I got in the elevator when I worked for the armored car. Remember I worked the armored car with Jackie's dad? I got on the elevator at the where was it? It was one of the big hotels, and Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks got on with us, and we were wearing uniforms that looked like cops. Our badges said deputy sheriff on them because we were deputized to have that job. And it looked like big, tall Fleetwood. He got all nervous and shit. Like, he acted all nervous and stuff. I'll never forget that. And she just kind of stayed in the corner, hunched over. I said, how you doing? I knew who they were, right? He just kind of clammed up. That's a true story.
He was definitely holding something. Okay, just the facts man's asking about an urban legend here. You remember Paul is Dead when you play the songs backwards and so many other little innuendos? Was Paul McCartney killed in a car crash? I'm going to say no. That was false.
You mean a long time ago?
Yeah, a long time ago.
And then they had another person come in? No, I don't believe that.
Right. I don't either.
Because look what he did after that. I mean, that was how talented Paul McCartney was. And then he took off and did Wings and all that stuff. Come on, that was the real
Right.
Paul McCartney.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Bill K, you're heading out. Thanks for showing up, buddy. We appreciate you. Always. Oh, wow. Mike found a Christine McVie solo album. Jeez, I bet those are flying off the shelves. Royce, you really should have your brother on again. He's very interesting, sir. Did you see that, Rich? They're demanding you come back. They're demanding you come back. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to come back then. I can't. Gotta keep
That's right. You're gonna have to come back.
know?
Well, my brother played in bands his whole life.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we can get a recording of that song "Creep" that Jackie sang that you're playing lead guitar in. Can we get
bass in that one?
Oh, that's right. You were bass. That's right.
Well, we switched off on a few songs, and that was one of them. Rich did the acoustic guitar on it. My son did.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, he was bent down playing the guitar.
Yeah, Daddy Boggs said Mick Fleetwood about 6'7". He definitely was. His head was almost hitting the ceiling in that elevator.
Wow.
He's a tall, skinny dude, real tall.
Now, Bill K, you just bought the Revolver album today, not the box set. Which album was that? Was it an old original pressing, or what was it? 2006. There was a new Revolver remixed Revolver came out. Just curious which one it was.
Yeah.
Buckingham and Mouvet were an item. Yeah, no, there was a lot of things like that taking place in that band. Legend has it Bowie or Stewart was in the ER for stomach cramps. Unusual substance was pumped from their stomachs.
That was I heard it was Rod Stewart, but I don't know. Yeah, but the unusual substance, you know what it was, supposedly.
I've heard that story before.
I don't know if I believe that story or not.
Yeah, and I don't know either. I think I read somewhere it wasn't true, but I don't.
It doesn't make sense with all the women, It doesn't make sense.
That's exactly right.
I mean, even if there was no women, it wouldn't make sense. It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I don't know.
No.
I know they had a good time. They partied and they got crazy. But that's just almost
right.
That's
right.
Not almost, but that's just disgusting.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right, Dan. The unusual substance.
It was Rod Stewart that I heard it about.
Stewart. Yeah. You hear all kinds of stories. I heard Elton John was really upset because Rod Stewart wouldn't get together with him.
I got a good one. Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, when they came to Vegas and played the MGM, I guess he did this a lot of places. He had to have an area of where he stayed to where he could run wind sprints, getting warmed up. You know how you do it football practice? You have to run back and forth.
Yeah. Oh no, believe me, I know all about wind sprints.
Yeah, but that's what he did before he went out, and he had to have a room big enough to do that in. So I don't know where they put him.
Did I tell you I went jogging yesterday? I ran my diesel truck out of fuel, and my wife was all pissed off.
Well, so you have to jog?
That's funny. She goes, "I'll go to the gas station." I said, "Stop! I'm going." And we're a decent distance from the gas station, so I got out and I started jogging down the street. So I didn't take that, So I have to buy like a $20, 2-gallon plastic gas can from the gas station, and put 2 gallons in it, and then hike back. And it wasn't raining, but it was misting. It was a real light drizzle. We've had some pretty strong rains here lately, and so the bummer about it is my truck is like it's a 2000. It's going on 23 years old, and the gauges are are kind of inaccurate, but it's just gotten worse. I did not get the low gas light come on till I was almost all the way down the hill I live on. Then I'm like a couple of miles from town, and it's all downhill, and I run out. And it used to go for a fair distance when the light came on.
Right.
Gary Spring is here. Look at this. Keith Richards snorting his father ashes. Not true at all. Oh, are you sure about that? He's repeated that a few times.
I thought it was one of the guys in the band. He did that. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That wasn't. I'm thinking somebody else, I guess.
Okay. We've talked about that. I think last week's show we talked about Keith Richards snorting his dad's
Someone's
ashes.
ashes, right? Oh, are you sure with Keith Richards? I don't know. Anyway,
Well, yeah, no, the story was about Keith Richards. Yeah.
some of these stories are just hard to believe, you know.
Oh, a lot of them are hard to believe. Yeah,
But
I'm
you know
just
what? How much drugs do you have to do, you know, to do something like that?
right.
I guess they did some serious drugs, but it's just hard. It's just way out there, you know.
Right. Thanks, Bill. Keith Richards uses baby. Keith Richards used to babysit Willie Nelson. Yeah, I love all those sayings. Like we got to
That's
start worrying
funny.
about
Yeah,
the world we're going to leave Willie Nelson. You know,
I think they're about the same age, aren't they?
I don't even know. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they're about the same age. Yeah,
Keith Richards is the living dead. He has been for 30 years.
that's great.
Look at these guys, the Stones, how old they're getting, and who'd have thought they'd lived that long?
Right. Anyway, yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate my brother Richie for joining us, and I try to get Rich to come on as often as he can. Richie's great. He's got a great sense of humor. You know, it's really good for the show to have my brother on. It's between the brothers.
Yeah.
It's between the brothers, Kate.
Yeah. Wait. No.
That's a
Wait.
famous line from the God. Yeah, I know. Famous line from the Godfather. It's between the brothers, Kate.
Yeah.
When Michael Corleone was before the congressional committee, and it looked like he was probably going to go to jail. They brought in that guy's brother from Italy, and all he had to do was look at his brother that was going to testify against Michael. He didn't do it, you know, and so
Right.
Michael got off. And he gets back, and his wife goes, you know, ask him how he got out of it. And he goes, what did you pay him? You know, she's like trying to be insulting about it all. And it's like,
She was all trying to get something
I
out
had
of
nothing
him.
to do with it. It was between the brothers, Kate.
Yeah. Right.
Willie is
that was
older
good.
than Keith. Look at that, Angela. Willie's older than Keith. Thank you.
Well, I knew. Yeah, I figured he was. I didn't know how much older. Maybe only about 6-7 years. All right, 8 years, maybe.
Yeah. How old is Willie? Like, I don't know, 82 or something?
Yeah, and Keith's in his 70s, right?
Good night, Daddy Boggs. Yeah, I think so. They could pass for the same age. Good night, Mary Jane. Night, Frank. Thank you for showing up. Bye, Bill K. Okay, guys. Thank you all very much for showing up. You're all very well appreciated. Hope to see you here next week. And thank you, Richie. And that's what's going on in Royce's world today. Thank you so much.
I'll give you the parade wave.
Good night.
All right.